of D-Day. Well, first of all, when that was coming, it was coming to a head. When D-Day was going to happen, what they did is they shipped me out of London, and they shipped me to Wales, and just sort of it was like a holding center, but we thought it was just sort of a little training, just a little casual thing. They didn't make a big deal out of it, and so special units, that's where they put us. So then from there, they shipped us by train from Wales to Southampton, and then we got on a ship there, a small ship, and it was like a training ship, but it was I don't know what it was, but anyway, we're on that thing, and the next thing you know, they said, so we're heading out. I don't know where, but we're heading out into the Channel, into the Clyde of, not the Clyde of Firth, but the Thames, the river. I mean the bay between France and England. I can't remember right now. And then anyhow, I'll go into detail on. You can ask me again because I'll think about the names and where I was and everything. But anyway, we're heading across, and the next thing you know, we're looking up, and here we see all these big American bombers with all this fancy stuff on them, and we're looking up, and they're heading all in the same direction. And that's when the guy said, "I'll bet this is D-Day. I'll bet this is it." And so after we got close to the French coast, we realized, but we didn't know what it was called. There was, that it was called Omaha Beach and all that stuff. That we soon found out, because once we got close to the shore, the German military was up on a cliff, and they were firing down at us, and we're on a little boat, right? And they're firing at us, and then all of a sudden here comes some fighter planes, vroom, firing at us. So he said, "Boy, this must be really it, D-Day." So that was it, and it was a horrible. That probably was the worst, most horrible experience of my life, because it felt like, and you look into the water, and you'd see bodies laying around, and these heads swollen up twice the size and everything else, and everybody say, "Well, you better watch yourself. You dump in the water. What's going to happen to you? You better. That's what's going to happen to you." So, and they couldn't come and pick them up and pull them out right away, because they're all around. They're firing down on you. They couldn't come in and save these guys. So until probably at night, really late at night and dark, or something like that, and they get in there and pull them out, pull the bodies out. But most of them were dead, so didn't pay to risk lives, pull dead bodies out. And anyway, so then now it's time for us to get there, and the way that this little boat that we were on, there's only one way to get off, and that's on ropes, little ropes, and I told you about Elmer Tepley, he was that guy older than me, and he says, "Please, Frank," he was from Austria-Hungary, and he spoke in Hungarian. He said to me in Hungarian, real quiet, he says, "Please," he says, "stand under me and guide my feet," because he says, I can't guide my feet. And he says, "Stand under my feet and make sure that it goes into the rope so that I don't fall into the water." So I did. I said, "Don't worry about anything, I'll handle it." So then I guided his feet as he came down this rope ladder, and then we got into a little boat, tiny, small boat, and then went on another 30 yards or so, and went right into the beach, into the sand, and then from there once we got there, then we, you know, you take off any direction you can, but you got to be careful that you go, you know, you run this way and you run that way. So if they're aiming at you, they happen, you know, they'll get you. So you try to avoid getting killed. So that you have to go through that period, and then you go and then what I did is, there's a guy that joined me from, and he says, "You mind if I go with you?" I said, "No." He said, "You seem to know what you're doing." And I said, "No, I don't." But I says, I know one thing. I want to get out of here. I said, "We can't hang around here." I said, "These guys don't like us." He says, "Okay." So we take off, and we started going up this little slope in this little town. We got into a little town, French town, and this woman is in French. She said, "Oh mon Dieu, mon Dieu," and here she's holding her tummy, and she's partly open, you know, and she was like what do you call a baby that's you know, not born yet? It's just and like I can't think of the word, but I might be in that one report I wrote up some time ago. But anyhow, so she says, I said, "What happened? Qu'est-ce que tu, you know, passé?" So she tells me that she went to light her stove and to cook a little bit, you know, and because life goes on, you know. They're near the beach and everything. They're not far. They're a little town, and the name of the town was Marigny, M-A-R-I-G-N-Y, Marigny. So she said I was cooking, and then it exploded. So what happened is they put now you know the word, and I can't think of it anymore. They call it, you know, the Germans put these things into the stoves and into things around the kitchen and into the homes where things would blow up on people and kill them. And so it was just, and so anyhow, it was, I'll tell you about that because I don't like to think about that too much. And so I took care of her, and then I got her some MD, what do you call them in the army, you know, military guys. It's in the red, in the medical, medical corps, you know. Well, anyhow, medical corps to help.
Had she been pregnant?
Pardon?
Was she pregnant?
She must have been. She must have been pregnant, and she probably was cooking, and it blew up, and it probably injured her, and I'm sure that it killed the fetus. I'm not sure, but I don't know how it could have served because it was all bloody. You know, I wasn't hanging around. It was embarrassing to her and me too, and to my buddy. That was the guy that was with me. He was the mayor of Houston, Texas. So that was quite an experience, and that was my experiences in seeing blood and seeing the savages of war. You know what it was like.
Was that the first time you had seen any casualty? D-Day?
Yeah, D-Day. Yes. Well, no, I saw casualties in London because there was a lot of bombing. You know, and but you get so I don't want to say that, but you know, you sort of get used to. You know, because they bomb, you know, any times, you know, 4 or 5, 10 times a day, you know, and they blow up houses and apartments and everything else. So you see a lot of death and a lot of things. And I don't want to talk anymore about that stuff, but remind me of that kind of stuff, and I'll go into again, you know, but I want to make notes on it because I want to make it as factual, and also, you know, you can make, you know, mark down questions that you would have about something like that, an incident like that. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think this way. Here you are, and you're sent to England, and you're there, and you see all this bombing and everything else. And then just think of yourself. You're Leslie. You are a male. You're a boy, and you're sent over there. And you had your little country bumpkin, you know, and you've never seen war. You've never seen life so cheap, where you know they're dying like flies, like in London. You know, they've hit an apartment building, and here's a lot of bodies on the street, you know. So it's quite a traumatic experience. That's the best word. There's a lot of trauma, and even as tough as you are, and you finally get hardened to a lot of it, but you never get hardened enough that you say, well, oh well, it's another 200-300 people killed. You know, you never do that, because you know it's another human being. It could be you. You know, but you don't run scared. You know, and you're not that you're brave. It has nothing to do with being brave. Something in your makeup makes you realize that if I do my job and I do it right, and I think ahead, the chances are very good that I can survive this whole thing. I'll do my job and I'll get it done. And somebody has to do it, and I've been appointed to do it at this time, and that's why I'm here. You know, and then I did tell you the story where, with this guy, and I gave you his name once, the guy from Texas who was the mayor before the war, and we get into a little town, and in that town, that was, I think the name of that town was Coutances, Coutance, and he says to me, God, he says, this is Catholic, you know, school, and it's a church, and he says they've got training here. He says, come on. He said they'll feed us and they'll give us a place to sleep. And he says, you speak French? He said, you speak that good of French? I said, yeah, I think I speak good enough. He says, let's go in there. So we go in, and he says, now, he says, don't say anything. He says, I know that you're not Catholic, but he said, just say what I tell you to say. So we go in, and he tells me in English, and then I said, and I asked the guy, you know, I'd say, well, and he'd say to me, ask him, we're American soldiers, and we're really hungry, we haven't eaten, is there any food for us? So I did. And he said, oh, we certainement, come on in. So they fed us, and then he says, now tell him, he says, by the way, he says, I know, he said, you don't like to lie. He says, but tell him we're Catholics. He says, I am Catholic. He says, but I know you're Protestant. I said, that's all right. I said, you know, that don't matter. So we went in, and sure enough, they took us in and they fed us. And then he says to them, after we got acquainted a little bit, he says, what about a little place to stay, sleep? So then the guy looked at us, and he looked at him, and then he said, the guy says to me, he says, well, how come you know, you guys are, you know, freelance like you are? And I didn't want to say we're in the intelligence service. It wouldn't be right, correct? It's not correct to do that. So I says, well, we don't know where to go, because we don't know where our troops are, and we don't know where they're stationed, and so on and so forth. And we just got off the ship. We just landed here at Omaha Beach near Marigny, because we're a little ways away from Marigny now. So he says, okay. So they fed us, they slept us, gave us a place to sleep, and even gave us some shirts, you know, and stuff. So then we managed to get along pretty good from there on. And then I'll tell you on from there what happened is we go on in, you know, keep going on through France. And he and I stayed together pretty well for quite a while, because of course he would never get away from me, because I could speak the language, and I you know, and it helped really.